as the speaking starts, it's like the movement of one of these little musical boxes, right? You know those tiny little musical boxes that you turn the handle, and the little notches and their placement give rise to a certain tune coming out. The sharing here is like that. In the gathering, the consciousness of each being is like one of those little notches on the barrel. And this form just serves to play the music of the gathering. Of course, it's actually wider spread than that. But what's close is what speaks here, right? So the speaking of the heart to heart, self to self, the flavor of what comes forward is the flavor according to each little notch on the barrel, right? Each being an intricate part of the flow of the one being that is life living itself, speaking to itself, inviting itself to turn inward instead of outward, to receive the grace, that the grace is the invitation, the great invitation of satsang is the invitation to turn inwards. It's the ultimate grace to receive the invitation and to receive it in the heart. Receive the invitation to turn inward in the heart is to take in the grace. Take in the grace of your own invitation to turn towards yourself, to be so present here, so fully present here with yourself, pulling all of the projections inwards, pulling all of the tendrils, the threads and fibers of your beingness inwards, so fully into this moment that your presence here is deep and still. It is only when the intellect receives this graced invitation and turns inward that there can be a deep enough stopping, that the stillness, the silence of being is recognized. Can never find this truth in the movement of the world, can never find this truth in the movement of things, of thoughts. Nothing in the external can bring you closer to yourself, whatever the mind tells itself about that. The invitation of the mind to find its true nature is such an invitation of grace, cannot be even imagined by the mind, the grace of the invitation. The invitation to know yourself as the freedom, the peace, the simple joy of being, to know yourself as the vast ocean of bliss that is. And so the grace is this constant invitation to stop looking in things. Only when the mind turns inward, let's say the intellect turns inward, can it awaken to its true nature. Only when the mind returns to its source, when the mind falls into the heart. But the mind falling into the heart is not a new age idea of the mind up here falling into the heart down here. The mind falling into the heart is the mind falling into the silence of being, into the stillness. The heart is the silence. The heart is the stillness of simple being. And so the mind has to find its true nature in the silence, to remember itself as the silence before sound, before thought, before everything. To find yourself as the emptiness, the openness, the stunning, pristine, immaculate beauty that is innocent, pure, and untarnished, untouched in any way by the play on the surface of life. Mind falls into the heart and explodes in the divine remembering. This is who you are, and this is who you have always been. There is nothing to do, nothing to achieve or get right. It is just to receive the invitation of your heart in the heart and turn into yourself, magically turn into yourself. Fall into the heart, that is the silence, the stillness of simply being. There is no effort required. There is no instruction required. It is not about getting it right or getting it wrong. It is falling in between right and wrong into perfection, falling between everything, every thought, every breath, every word. Fall in between, fall into the crack that is the silence of being. Fall into the well of silence and drink deeply of yourself. Be truly quenched, be truly nourished by your own presence, right here in this moment, in the glorious fullness of this moment. Drink yourself in. Drink yourself in. Receive the invitation, the glorious invitation to jump into the silence of the self. Use this opportunity to see the ways of the mind, its habit to think that it knows something. The longing of every mind is for freedom, is for love, is to know this truth. But this truth can only be found when the attention turns into itself. Attention turns to meet its own aware source. When attention rests, relaxes in this moment. Can bring yourself to the silent presence of being. And here we wait, perfectly, simply being, for the divine to pounce and swallow us all the way into divine remembering, into the glory, into the glorious remembering. And if that remembering is already here, then these words are just the celebratory flow that carry you into yourself, into the singing, dancing, yes, yes, this, and deeper and more profound and more beautiful. The invitation of grace is ever present in this moment, here now. And this moment is always this moment. This moment is timeless, glorious wonder. It is the timeless, eternal. Without beginning, without end, we fall into the essence nature of the self. Is the simplicity of being. Every moment holds this incredible invitation to know yourself. And do not be fooled thinking that you have all this time in the world. We are here to know this truth. We are here for truth. We are not here to play and distract. The only purpose of the human life, in truth, is to know yourself. And in the knowing of yourself, to live this awakened reality right on the surface of life. To be the light, to be the love, to be the glorious one in divine service. To live out our days with a body in divine service. And what is that service? It is to shine, 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 and never ever for 1 millisecond be dimmed. Shine in the knowing of your true nature. Shine in the knowing of the self that you are. Shine in this unquestionable knowing. The self is ever present, shining as itself. Never ever dimmed, never ever dulled in any way. Always radiant, beaming itself, knowing itself. And that knowing is the radiant shining. It is the shining heart. It is the being. And this is the truth of who you are. Make no mistake, you have never left yourself. You have never been anything other than this self. And as these words come, it is to feel the resonance. And where you feel the resonance, you receive the invitation to know yourself, to be with yourself, to turn inward into yourself, to be here, to pull in all of the projections. Invitation to pull in the projections, to give up the habitual way of behaving in the worldly ways of egocentric patterning that is all about personality and the me, to pull in all of the projections and be here so fully, to pull in all of the projections and face yourself, to face yourself so fully. When you first face yourself, you might find things that feel uncomfortable, but it is to stay right here and have the vigilant courage to face yourself. This is the surrender, to keep meeting yourself and not continue to perpetuate the patterning, the egocentric dance of the me, centering it, everything around me and around me and around me. It's to give up the dance of the me, to recognize that it takes a courage and a vigilance to just be here, to not follow the habitual ways of the me and the mind. But at the same time, it is not a doing. It is not something that you can set your mind upon and work to achieve. And thus there is a surrender. The surrender is to not know, to not be able to, in a way to meet an utter hopelessness in the eyes of the mind, because there's nothing that can be done. The heart is the only way to know yourself, and to come to the heart requires a turning inwards to discover the source of all that moves, to discover the source of what you are in truth. What is this I? What is this I that I refer to constantly? What is this I in truth? To come to the I am presence, to just be here. I am, I am, I am. Just simply being, simply being. Just here. You find yourself in the felt sense. The felt sense is the aliveness of presence. The feelings are not feelings that are like moods and emotions. The felt sense is the aliveness of the knowing, the aliveness of being present. Just to feel yourself here. So when you come to the felt sense of just simply being here, either through coming to the I am and feeling yourself as the I am, feeling your simple existence, that you are here, and there is a knowing that you are here, but that knowing you are here is not anything to do with thought. It's a felt sense. And in this felt sense, you find yourself. You find yourself in the felt sense of being. God is in the Bhav. The Bhav is the felt sense. You are in this felt sense. The glorious, glorious felt sense of being yourself. This felt sense is freedom, is joy, is simple peace, is simple being. It is a resonance, a recognizable resonance that never ever changes. It is your own presence, and you recognize your own presence. And this presence is alive. It is alive in the simple knowing of itself, through simply being itself. It is so simple to come here, but what you find here is not something. And so the mind that is looking for something will immediately turn around and go towards things, because the mind is looking for a conclusion. The mind is looking for something familiar, and so disregards the emptiness of being. And so as you come to the felt sense, it is a felt sense that is empty of content, empty of things, and yet it is full of the aliveness of being. But it takes a maturity and a refined enough nervous system to feel this felt sense and to hold the presence. Let's say the maturing and the ripening to be able to rest here comes about through simple practices, sadhana, meditation, sitting, the practices of various traditions that will bring a settling are supportive so that the nervous system has the ability to rest here. to hold its own presence, right? So for the ones that have that maturity, can recognize how there's a deepening, and a deepening that comes. At some point, the resonance just flows in. And as the resonance flows in, there is a remembering, a familiarity. And this is that pull of the divine, of the heart. It's the pull of the heart, pulling the mind deeper into surrender, into letting go, into grace. Nothing is needed for this pull to happen. It is grace itself in perfect divine timing. The divine pulls itself into itself. It pulls the mind that is here and present into the heart. And into the heart of silence, the remembering is here. The awake field that is awake to itself is ever present, ever here, knowing itself. This is the truth of who you are, and it is ever present here now. You have never not been this one. You have never been away from yourself. It is a simple movement of the attention that has been habituated into distraction. But because of this habituation into distraction, that there is a compulsion and an addiction to the busyness and the whirring frequency of doing and action and mind and mind and mind, right? So this is what needs to settle, to be able to come to stillness, to presence. There has to be a settling, a settling, a settling, a settling into the I am presence of simply being, a settling into yourself and resting here, and being carried by the flow of the knowing. The alive flow of the knowing carries you deeper into the heart that is the radiant shining self, knowing itself, resonating with the unquestionable alive knowing of itself. Innocent, pure, immaculate being, simplicity, silence, stillness. There is freedom here in this emptiness, but we can only know this freedom when we are pulled into the emptiness and we rest here, not looking for more things, not looking for more experiences. That there can be the subtle attunement to the resonance to recognize that this is something precious, something pure, something that is not of the world, something here that is so deep and silent, like a stop, a deafening stop, as the silent roars its truth. And what is that truth? It is the silent psalm that says this is who you are, and this is who you have always been. Remember this peace that is undisturbable. Remember the simple freedom of being. Remember the happiness, the joy of the open heart that is empty of story and content and full only of the bliss of the self. Remember this beauty that you are. Remember. And so the constant invitation is to receive the resonance and to turn inward, so that the mind and the intellect turns inward, and then it awakens to the remembering of its own nature, discarding the objects, not this, not that, not the moving, changing, not the thoughts, not the story, not the roles that we play. Nothing that is moving and changing is worth identifying with. Identify only with the silence of the heart and know yourself and be free. Remember the freedom, the unbounded freedom of being this vast open field that has no limits or edges, is not contained in any way. Remember the grace of who you are, shining here now, the timeless essence of being. Remember. And the remembering, it is not a mental remembering. The remembering is in the recognition of the resonance, the recognizing, bringing alive that which is already here. Feel the sparks, the igniting of remembering. Feel the resonant aliveness of recognizing, the illumination as the dawning of this knowing comes forward. There has to be a resting here, because as we meet the presence, the emptiness, the silence, the stillness, there has to be a resting, because let's say as the resonance is recognized, the moment of recognition is like a tiny, tiny little taste. But if there is a resting here, that tiny taste grows. As you taste that little drop of yourself, that little drop of blissful freedom, of blissful emptiness, the taste of that, the drinking in of this true nourishment of yourself, it starts to amplify and enliven itself. We could even say it intoxicates itself. It falls into itself. It tastes its nourishing, fulfilling richness, and it drinks of itself. It drinks of itself, and it does not have to be afraid of feasting upon itself. Feast away, it says. Drink in the bliss of your own being and know yourself. Know the glory of who you are. Drink yourself in. Do not stop feasting. There is no end to the depths you can fall into yourself. You fall into the heart, and there is no more separation, no more illusion, no more delusion. There is wholeness, the wholeness of being, the deep, nourishing wholeness of the being that you have always been. This blissful, silent, nourishing being that is just here, simply here. So attention rests. The felt sense I am, falling into yourself, simply being here. First stop, silent witness, resting here as the presence, the witnessing, open presence, aware of the moving, changing, aware of, but not touched, simple aware being, witnessing, watching, never moving, so much more spaciousness to witness and watch the moving, changing. To recognize that this witness is a part of you that can be forgotten when there is identification with the objects of experience and the content of the moment. So falling into witnessing awareness, opening, opening, opening. The felt sense is more spaciousness, like an expansion, an openness. Start to feel that emptiness, that there are no edges to this witnessing presence that you are. You are aware of the moving, changing, but then to come deeper, you are aware of the moving, changing, but as the witness here. How do you know that you are here as the witness? Awareness, aware of itself, being aware. We could say the witnessing presence, aware of its ability to witness. And as the witnessing presence is aware of itself, it falls deeper into itself, and attention rests more deeply, because as aware presence becomes aware of itself, it is suddenly way more interested in itself, and its attention is not so curious to wander towards the moving, changing things anymore, because the felt sense of being with yourself is an even more glorious unboundedness, more spaciousness, undefinable, unexplainable freedom. No edges here, just the felt sense of being, uncontained, unlimited, the whole awake field you are, the infinite awake field you are. Remember this freedom of being, the infinite awake field. You are awake to yourself at every point. It includes the body, but you cannot find yourself as the body because you are finding yourself everywhere. You are finding yourself awake and alive as the same presence everywhere. You are the whole awake field. So you feel to be boundless. You feel to be everywhere. You feel to be nowhere. It's in the feeling. This is the bhav. This is the grace of being here now as the timeless being. And it is in this same presence that God is present. Everything that you are longing for is right here in this very same presence. Even if it feels like you cannot locate any of these other godly qualities in this moment, it's all here, and only through being here do the divine, alive qualities reveal themselves. They are not even really qualities or attributes. They are flows. They are gorgeous, glorious flows of yourself. And what are these flows? The flow of freedom. The flow of freedom. You feel the flow of freedom because you are expanded into the boundless field. So you feel yourself. You are the flow of freedom. You feel yourself as the flow of happiness, the flow of joy. It's a lightness. It's a happiness, a joyful aliveness that's not dependent on things or experience or happenings or people. It's just this effervescent aliveness that you feel happy, joyful for no reason, right? So we're expressing all the flows. If you don't feel one of the flows that are being expressed, do not get lost by going back to the mind to say, I'm not finding that. Stay here in the flow, in the silence of your being. Everything is happening here in this vast open field of consciousness. These words, remember the music box and how the music that is being played is the song of your own silent heart, that the song that is playing is the song that you are longing to hear. So stay here and listen to the song. Receive the resonance of the song in the transmission of silence, of stillness. And as we speak of these flows, where there is recognition, fall in. And if there doesn't feel to be recognition, stay with the silent resonance, right? Because whatever words are coming, they are the flow of silence. They are not sound in the way of noise and mental reverberation. These words are the song of the silent heart, singing itself, into its own lightness of being. And yes, if the mind is active and acting as a distraction, if there is judgment and opinion and thoughts coming forward, it is the invitation to come to this moment, to come to the I am presence, pull in the projections, can feel that there are projections in the field, because remember the music box, it's playing everything that's here. It recognizes everything. So it can feel the distractions, it can feel the judgments, it can feel how the egocentric patterns are trying to pull the attention. But as we speak to those laws of nature, we invite them, come, join the gathering in the silence of the heart, and do not be distracted by the egocentric patterning, because everything that is here, all of the unconscious that is wanting to surface, what does it want? It wants love. Right behind judgment and opinion and frustration, there's just something that wants love. So come to love. Come to the silence. Let the vehicle of your being bring you to presence. Have the courage to say no to the mind and come to presence. Yes, come to presence. So these flows that are flowing, they are flowing and they are catching. They are catching these, these discordant patterns that are trying to pull the attention, right? So we're polishing and sweeping and cleaning the whole field of consciousness. That is the glory of the ever allowing, accepting field. And every body being that is here is part of this. The deeper in you are, the more you are transmuting and cleaning and sweeping and flowing in the joyful happiness, right? There is healing happening here. There is transformation happening here. There is gorgeousness happening here beyond what the mind can imagine. But we are speaking to the laws of nature. We are recalibrating, reprogramming, redefining. We're inviting everything that feels to have been left out into love. Come, come, come into the heart, right? Does not matter. We are not concerned with anything that is dancing on the surface of life. We are deep in the stillness, in the silence, in the purity and innocence of the heart that welcomes it all, that loves it all. A love that is so free, unconditioned. There are no edges. There are no restrictions to this love. This love is a merciful love, a redemptive love. It brings a gorgeous welcoming to everything that wants to try to rebel, right? It is inviting everything. So within your own experience, it's not to move towards those energies that want to pull into a small dance. It's to allow everything to come in to the presence of this moment, where these flows, these gorgeous flows, and you feel these flows in your own knowing, your knowing. You start to feel the subtlety of the field, the alive field, right? The music, the song of the silence that is playing. The love is one of the flows. It is a love without condition. It's the flow of life without condition. The flow of life without condition is an unfiltered, unedited freedom in all of your functioning, right? You start to feel loose and flowing and moving with a fluidity and a freedom, because there's nothing restricting, right? Life moving in utter freedom. There is a peace, a deep, deep peace here. The peace has never been touched. It is the peace of the presence, the stillness. It is not a peace that is because of. It is the ever-present peace that is before any kind of understanding. It is the peace that you are. It is the peace that is right here in the center of this moment. Regardless of what is playing on the surface of life, this peace is always, always here. There is awe and wonder and delight at the freshness, the effervescent freshness of this discovery of yourself. There is lightness And that lightness is a lightness that doesn't have a burdensome heaviness. It's a lightness which is empty and free, like a floating lightness. And it is also a lightness that is bright and radiant and brilliant in the shining of its own knowing, right? The self shining in and of itself. The silence that is deep and still, and the silence that is alive in the knowing of itself, and flowing within that knowing of itself as the aliveness of presence, the resonance, the shimmering, glimmering radiance of the heart. Here you are, shining in the glory of yourself. So simple, so free, more you than you have ever been, right? And we speak to you the being, you the self, you the one, you the peace, you the love, you the joy, you the happiness, you the innocence, the purity, the untainted openness, unfettered in any way, right? This immaculate being that you are. Remember who you are. Remember self, the glory of yourself, the essence nature of all beings. Where we meet is where the song is singing its silent knowing, right? So as this resonance is enlivening itself, where you feel the resonance, you meet your own knowing. It's where the words that are coming from here meet as the resonance. This is where the magic happens. This is where you discover that these words are your words, that these words are the silence of the heart singing itself home, singing its silent song of wholeness, of innocence, of divine belonging, right? It's all here. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. You are so beautiful. It takes humility to receive your beauty, to receive your perfection, to meet yourself so fully, to stare into your own brilliant silence, the humility to let go of the story of not enough, not getting it, not for me, not lovable, not right now, right? It takes humility to let go of the story that wants to keep dancing the small dance, to fall into your largesse, to discover that you are boundless, freedom, and this is the truth, the whole truth, the only truth, and you are that truth, right? It's not to be believed or understood or conceptualized. You feel it here as the aliveness of your own heart. Perhaps you feel the aliveness of the longing for God, for freedom, for this knowing, to really take you, to feast upon you like the tiger in the divine heart, waiting to pounce and feast on you, right? But you have to bring yourself right here. You have to bring yourself to the silence. You have to use the only choice you have to choose God, to choose now, to choose this, to choose freedom, to choose truth. Use the only choice you have to turn inward into yourself. And if it seems like you are having to choose again and again and again, then choose it again and again and again. In every moment, this is your only choice, to choose yourself or to choose the distraction, to choose yourself or to choose the projection, the world, the desires, the wants, to choose yourself, to choose God, or to choose the play, right? In every moment, this is the only choice, right? So the mind can jump in and say, oh, but how do I operate? You cannot know that until you choose God. You cannot know how life lives itself till you say yes to being unconditional life and falling all the way into yourself. You cannot know with the mind how or why or when or what if. You cannot know anything. And this is the surrender. It is the surrender into the not knowing. It is dying into that surrender, into not knowing, beyond all understanding. It is falling into a depth of surrender that will bring us to our knees again and again and again. Because we will be saying yes and yes and yes, and then we will find we have danced off the merry dance into the world of desires and wants. And of course, this too is part of the divine unfolding, is that we forget and we take the bite of the apple, right? We take the bite and we chew on our wants and our desires, right? We fall into chaos. We fall into the chaos that happens when we take a bite of the worldly. But the grace is that this moment, the choice to return, the choice to fall into yourself, it's always here. You always are this. So it matters not. That is the gorgeousness. It matters not how many times we falter, how many times we trip and fall and skin our knees and graze our noses. It matters not. And at the same time, we do not want to conceptualize this and give the mind a little bit of leeway that says, well, I've got all the time in the world to realize this truth. I might as well just spin around on the merry-go-round of desires one more time. No, because you do not know what is around the corner. Do not put off the receiving of the graced invitation to turn into yourself. The grace of satsang is that it is a constant invitation. It is a constant invitation to turn into yourself. The grace of satsang is that it is here to ignite the fire again and again. It is here to fuel the fire, make that fire of truth a blazing fire in your heart. It is to ignite your longing so that you are alive and pulled into this truth. At some point, the invitation is received. So the grace of satsang is that constant invitation, that constant singing of the song, turning the handle on the music box, right? And singing the song of the heart with the tune, this tune here now, this tune that we are singing together, where the consciousness here is singing exactly what it needs to hear to come home to a deeper remembering of itself. Right? How beautiful, how glorious is this song that we are making together, right? It is the song of love, right? Not one of those songs of love that plays on the surface of life that's all about heartbreak and loss and never ever getting what we are longing for, because it imagines that what we are longing for is a love on the surface. It is the true song of love that is already fulfilled. It is the song of the love of the divine heart that says, here you are. You are this love. You are the wholeness. You are the love that you have been longing for. Be in love with yourself. Feel this love loving you from inside. Feel this love loving you right now. That you are the love that is loving you. You are the love that is, right? Remember Charlie Brown and love is, right? This, the love that is. You are it. You are it now, right? The love that is wants nothing. The love that is needs nothing. The love that is does not even so much proclaim itself in I love yous, right? Even that is a subtle step out, and yet it is a pure and beautiful step out. But the love that is so full and rich that it knows itself. It knows itself, and from this deep well of knowing itself, in its purity, it might sing the song of I love you. It might sing the song of I love you, I love you, I love you, so that you can feel the resonance of this purity in your own heart, that a true I love you is a meeting in the heart of love. It is not an I that loves you. It is not a me that loves you. It is a love that loves love. It is a love that simply loves love. And you can feel a love that loves love because it wants nothing, nothing from you. It asks nothing, nothing from you. It just loves, pure and simple, innocently, wholeheartedly, fully, completely, richly, devotedly, right? Can feel a love that just loves because you melt in its presence into the remembering of the love that you are, right? Everything that is longing for love, it's longing for safety, it's longing for belonging, but it will only let go into a love that it can feel the resonance of safety, of innocence, of purity. Will not let go into a love where there is any feeling of caution, right? Because that one has learned to protect the heart, right? So it will not let go all the way until there is enough complete safety to let down the protection, right? What knows that safety? What knows the purity? What recognizes that is the love inside you that you already are, right? It's the love that you already are inside that is loving itself into the remembering of a safety and a wholeness, a purity and an innocence before any story came in and brought in a feeling of somehow being unsafe, unworthy, unlovable, right? So in the innocence and the purity of true love, it is to stand in the innocence and purity of your own immaculate heart. Only in the presence of your own immaculate heart will you truly let go into yourself, right? But how beautiful that this is not external in any way. It's not even in the presence of these words, right? It's in the presence of these words, you have the possibility of meeting the love that you are, right? You meet what these words are pointing to. We could say yes, where they're coming from and what they're pointing to. But you meet this love that you are in the innocence of the love that you are in your very own heart of being. You meet your own innocence, your own immaculate purity. Before any story, before any happening, you meet the eternal divine love of God that you have always been. How precious is this now that is full of the enlivened love of your own heart. This love that forgives, this love that welcomes everything. And as soon as you touch in and you taste your own innocent, pure heart, you are the welcoming light and love that is here to hold this vast, open, beautiful, innocent space for all of those places that have been rejected, right? You have this ability now to welcome every single part of yourself that has been rejected into this love, into this safety, into the grace of knowing what you are knowing right now, right? So profound and beautiful to know yourself, to let go into yourself. So as these words are coming, we are healing hearts and transmuting the protections. We are transmuting and transmuting by welcoming. We are welcoming with gratitude the courage of every single fiber that steps forward to receive the possibility of falling into this love. We're welcoming the courageousness of every single discordant pattern and conditioning. We're welcoming it all to surrender itself into this love, into belonging to itself, belonging to itself, to the one self, belonging, home, coming, right? All of these exiled and rejected fibers start flooding in, flooding in to the light, the love that is safe and innocent and pure. To feel your openness, to feel your beauty, to feel your wholeness. There is no need for story here, because we are deep in the consciousness. Transmuting in the depths of consciousness. Every heart is receiving itself more fully, falling into its infinite nature. More, 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 more love, more light, more clarity, more beauty. It is so incredibly humbling to fall into these deep flows of love, because it takes everything to let go of the protection. It takes this humility. So much beautiful humbling happening in the unseen. The true heart, that is silence. When the mind humbles into the heart, finds its true nature in the silence, in the stillness. There is a knowing here, and the knowing is the knowing of the self. It is pure knowledge, self-knowledge, self-aware awareness. So we speak these words because the codes are cracking, and as the codes are cracking, when you receive the word, you receive the transmission. You receive the transmission of a word that you have been trying to understand with the mind. And as its concepts fall away, as you receive the transmission, the code cracks. And there's a deeper landing of what self-knowledge is, of what self-awareness is, right? Has no meaning, and yet it explodes in the aliveness of recognizing itself, in the aliveness of pure knowing. You are just as you have always been. Simple, silent, stillness, immaculate, pure, innocent being, divine all the way through, right to the deepest depths and right onto the surface of life as a unique flower, divine all the way through. nothing to get, nothing to understand. It is simply to be yourself, to say yes to this moment, to be this moment. The I am presence is the doorway to find the source of what the I truly is, to find the source of the mind and the intellect. The source is the silence of being. Falling into the emptiness, the openness, the simplicity of just being here now as the timeless being. And as the mind falls into the heart, it is the simplicity of mind falling into the silence. The silence is the heart. The heart is the self, is grace, is God, is the divine. Wholeness. Wholeness is here, and it is what you have always, always been. And so the nourishing song of the self, the nourishing song of the silent heart, singing itself home into the radiant brilliance of the wide open heart of divine wholeness.